Welcome to another 10-minute business insight. This time I'm speaking with Dan Barnett. Dan comes to us from Lake Tahoe in Nevada. And Dan, you and I go back a long ways from a day when you came out of corporate America and you worked as a CEO for many divisions of many of the big food companies. And you also were CEO of Constellation Brands, the wine company. But where you and I met was you were running as Chief Operating Officer TEC worldwide, TEC, the CEO organization now in the U.S. called Vistage. But one of the things that you've always advocated in terms of how you run companies was driving to one or two key items that the team can rally around. I think you call it make or break execution points. And maybe I'll just let you elaborate on that and then talk a little bit about how we track those things as we get into this conversation. So first, welcome. And
Thank you.
Talk to me about these make or break points that will help a CEO and an organization really focus.
Well, my experience with myself and with a lot of CEOs that I've worked with over the years is that most of us get tied up in these alligators and squirrels that jump up at us every day. And we start to deal with that. And we spend our whole day dealing with alligators and squirrels. Not only that, but we have so many things that we want to accomplish. We got to do all these things are really important to us in our business. And if you try to do 14 things, the reality is you're going to absolutely do none well. And on top of that, you spend all of your day dealing with alligators and squirrels. You're not going to be focused on the important things. You're dealing with little things all the time. And I just see that happening all the time with companies that I deal with in my own experience. So what I've found is that if you can focus an organization, take a look at all those things that are important and figure out the most important things. In fact, if you can figure out the single most important thing that you need to do that'll get you to your vision, there's great power in knowing what that is. And that's what the make or break is all about, is focusing down, figuring out what's most important, and then putting processes in place so you can execute really well against that and make sure the most important things happen week in and week out in your company. It's what the concept is all about.
I know a lot of times people, for most people, I probably, the first place they start is on the revenue line. So trying to figure out more revenue, how do I generate activity? You came up with a line that has stuck with me forever. It's what causes sales? And, it is a really interesting question. It seems simple at the beginning until you start to peel back that onion a little bit. You've seen this loads and loads of times, and it really is getting down to that one most important thing. Now, I mentioned sales. It can be on execution or operations. It can be on any topic. But on the sales one, what causes sales is way harder to answer than you think.
Yeah, and here's the problem with revenue. It looks backwards. By the time something is revenue, it's over, and you can't do anything about it. You got to get in front of that. Start facing forward when you're running your business. And the way you face forward is to start to understand the activities, the things that people actually do that'll cause sales to happen. Because if they're not doing those things today, you're never going to get your sales tomorrow. All results look backwards. And most of us run our businesses looking backwards because most of the reports we get as leaders are results. Run our organizations looking backwards. I say what you really want to do is figure out the activities, the actions that cause those results to happen, because actions and activities look forward. You do an activity today, you get a result tomorrow. And you can do what I call a value chain, which is forward-facing metrics that are real activities for any result. So whatever you're trying to accomplish, if you can step back and figure out, what do we do today that will cause that result to happen tomorrow? Now, by making sure that those activities are happening week in and week out in your organization, that's how you can start facing forward as you run your business instead of always looking backwards.
I think one of the interesting concepts in this too is that often if you fail to do an activity today, it doesn't show up on your P&L for, depending on your sales cycle, it could be 6 months, it could be a year, it could be 18 months out. And it's a lot like that empty airplane seat or the empty hotel room that's lost inventory you never get back. And so you've got to actually do things today so that when you get the scorecard I can put it that way. You get the financial statement, you've got the problems resolved, as opposed to, oh boy, now we've got trouble.
Well, and actually, it's a good point. In the end, it's all about the scorecard. What you're going for is the results. That's
Yes.
really important. The problem is results don't happen magically. So by stepping back for a second and really figuring out what do you do today that caused that result tomorrow, now you can begin to look forward instead of looking backwards when you're running your business.
Now, you call this forward-facing,
Yes.
and forward-facing dashboards is sort of, in my view, one of those few elements that a CEO and an organization can deploy to actually empower themselves to get some work done. The forward-facing dashboard is your concept, but it's really it's just a mechanism for tracking this, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah, tracking is so important. I don't know, fundamentally, I'm kind of a facts and data guy, but I actually learned something a long time ago, and I picked this up from Brené Brown. She said a story is data with a soul. When you start to bring all these numbers to your people and you get them to focus on measuring what's important, making sure it's happening, figure out what's in it for the people that are working on it. Give it some soul for your people. The way to do that is to put a story around it. Here's why this is important. Here's why we're doing this. This is important for all of us. It's not just about me and making some big number. It's about all of us being successful. And so, you know, I think that the measurements are just so important, but never lose sight of the fact that it's your people and their commitment that is in the end going to get you there. The stronger you build your organization, the more chance you're going to actually get where you want to go.
If you've got 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 different activities that you've identified, you know, how do you, in an operational sense or practical sense, how do you deploy those inside an organization? If I'm the leader, how do I use those?
So, so how do you actually get people to start to do the important things instead of being focused on the alligators and the squirrels? I think that's the question you're asking there.
Yes.
I believe that you really need to set up a set of meetings and direction. So you begin with clear direction. I think that it's really important to know where you're going. So you want to set up what I call a vision. And there's books and books written on vision, literally thousands of books. But the way I look at a vision is make it clear and specific and measurable so that you really understand what you're trying to accomplish. What's the future going to look like for your company? So now you got that. I call that clear direction. And then know what the most important things are for you to do. 1 or 2 really critical things that are going to cause you to get there. All right. And figure out what those are so that you really understand what that is. All right. Then how do you make sure that happens? So what I believe is that you have to have regular meetings with yourself as the leader. I say, lead these things yourself. These are the most important things. Lead it yourself and get people to every week to take a look at those activities and make sure that they are happening week in and week out in your company. And they will always get off track. And when they get off track, you want to problem solve and get them back on track as soon as possible. And that's another meeting I call a rapid action team meeting, where you actually take a look at things that are getting off track every week and you quickly get them back on track. This allows you to be agile and nimble, where as things are changing, and things always change, you know, then you can actually, nimbly address it and get back on track. So it's those series of meetings that you have, and I really encourage people to do this every week in your company. And this thing about leading it yourself, I'm not talking about micromanagement. I think micromanagement is mismanagement. I'm talking about leadership. Just be there. Be a part of it. Let people know that this is important in your company. The more clear that you can make that this is the most important thing, the more people will really get, yeah, we're going to focus ourselves on this. Now, every week, the most important thing is going to happen. It doesn't take that much of your time. So you can have the rest of the week to deal with other things, but make sure the most important things are happening in your company week in and week out.
Dan, as always, great insights. Thank you for this. I really appreciate it. Dan Barnett, he's in Lake Tahoe and is now running a private equity company, but has come out of running big corporate organizations and has learned many, many lessons on how to do that effectively. And thanks for sharing that one with us today.
Thank you, Paul, for having me with you today. Enjoyed it.
Take care. You've been listening to the 10-Minute Business Insight on MyNewsroom.ca.